Welcome to another episode of the Laser Bros podcast with me, Logan and my co-host, Luke Lazarchik. This week, we are going to talk about our reactions and takeaways from week 2 of the NFL season. We planned to do this last week, but time constraints didn't really allow us to. Luke, how are you? And what games kind of caught your eye this weekend?
I'm doing pretty good. Well, there's a lot of games. I mean, that Jets-Browns game, for example, that was one which just sort of is over, and then it wasn't. The most talked about one was Ravens-Dolphins. I mean, 6 touchdowns for Tua. That was pretty big. We also had the Colts being blown out 24-0. No Michael Pittman. They couldn't gain offense. Trey Lance's injury was pretty big, and we'll see with that if Jimmy G's an upgrade. And then it's just Raiders was weird, and then losing to Cardinals in that fashion, and then Monday night was just two blowouts.
Yeah, last night was kind of anticlimactic. I was kind of looking forward to both those games, especially the Vikings and Eagles. I kind of expected the Bills to take care of business against the Titans, but the Eagles-Vikings is 24-7 at halftime, and nobody scored in the second half. So the second half was pretty boring, to say the least.
Kirk Cousins in prime time, you never trust them.
Yeah, and I thought Vikings, I thought they had a lot of opportunities to climb back to that game. You had the blocked field goal, but then Kirk Cousins threw that pick. Mm-hmm. And then they also moved the ball down the field to start the second half, and nothing came of it. So
very unfortunate for them. They just had a whole bunch of missed opportunities. Kirk Cousins was not good, and we'll see where they go on from there.
So are you ready to kick us off with your first takeaway from week 2?
Yes. My first takeaway doesn't directly involve the Vikings, but it could after this week. My takeaway is that the Detroit Lions can be a legit playoff team with this offense. When you look at how this offense has performed, this running game with Swift, not as much Jamal, but even Swift was limited. They did a great job. The Jared Goff's done pretty dang well. It's just been Amon-Ra St. Brown, stud. I think he's probably coming into the fold as one of the premier receivers in this league. And it's just they don't even have Jameson Williams yet. DJ Shark didn't do anything this week, but had a good week 1. Josh Reynolds has been pretty good. And if this offense keeps this up, they have a big game against the Vikings next week. That could be huge in telling us a lot about the NFC North. And I just think that this Lions team is not going to be an easy win for anyone. And Dan Campbell may have himself a playoff team.
Yeah, I've been very impressed with the Lions this season. I know they lost week 1 against the Eagles, but they still dropped 35 points. And what was really impressive is that they were able to run on the Eagles, especially after watching last night's game.
Yes.
The Eagles held Dalvin Cook to only 17 yards. So the fact that they were able to accumulate, almost 200 yards rushing with DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams, I was very impressed by that. And, I'm not a big Jared Goff guy, but he's been able to run the offense. And, Amon-Ra St. Brown, a lot of people thought last season was kind of a fluke when he came onto the scene, but he's picked up right where he left off.
No, yeah, he's been big. I think he could be one of the better receivers in all the NFL. I mean, I think he scored a touchdown in nearly every game of the last 7 games last year. It may have been every single one. I think he scored one in each of these 2 games. And he's just continuing to perform on a weekly basis. And it's just, he even had that big run. So it's just the run pass. And Swift has been a monster. Jameson Williams, I think that's really intriguing. I was not a big fan of his in the draft, but I still think he could be good. Do you think Jameson Williams, what do you think his impact could be when he comes back?
I think he could be that field stretcher. And I'm not sure if it was he was expected to be back week 6 or 8. But I do think once he comes back, that'll open up the offense even more and even less attention. Right now, teams are probably giving as much attention as possible to Amon-Ra St. Brown. But I think once Jameson Williams comes in, he'll take some of that attention away.
No, and DJ Shark, I know he dropped the fleet. They even had a drop flea flicker. I mean, Washington looked pretty good against the Jaguars, who look like they have a competent offense. And then the Lions they had a little break there. They were marching up and down the field. I know.
Do you think they're?
Oh, you go.
Go ahead.
I was going to say that the defense hasn't been great, but they were holding Washington. I mean, I know it's Carson Wentz, but Washington has some great weapons. They're holding them for pretty long. Aiden Hutchinson, 3 sacks. Keep seeing that Malcolm Rodriguez has been playing great at linebacker. They got definitely a steal from him, and he was pretty cool to watch in Hard Knocks. And it's just they're going to be very interesting. They're with the way the NFC is as a whole. I mean, Packers, Vikings. Those are probably top two teams, but maybe they're not. Maybe the Vikings just had a good week one. The Packers will probably stay consistent with their defense. And then NFC East, I mean, you just got the Eagles really looking good. The NFC West is not really impressed. The NFC South also sort of looks in shambles. So the Lions could easily walk in there, take a wild card spot, and it could and maybe there's the smallest chance in the world they're truly compete for NFC North, but that we can't say that yet. That's a long ways away.
What would be your percentage of the Lions finishing second place in that division? Because I expect either Vikings or Green Bay to finish first. And if Green Bay finishes first, I think it's more likely that Lions can finish second.
I do think so too, because I think maybe the Vikings last night, it shows that Kirk Cousins has his issues. And if Green Bay does finish first, I'd say they're more likely to finish second, because I don't think I see the Lions having a better record than Green Bay. Mm-hmm. I can see Vikings. It's just where exactly. I'd give it like a 15 to 20% chance of second place, because Vikings and Packers are still really good. I think it would have to take a big fall from one of those teams for the Lions to jump above them. But this week 3, that's what makes it so interesting. This is just a big matchup. Two good offenses. Vikings looking to bounce back. Lions can go 2-1. They could be huge.
So my first takeaway from week 2 is that the Eagles are the best team in the NFC. I think the Eagles all around have the best roster. Offensive line, you could probably say, is best in the league. Defensive line is definitely one of the top units in the league. They added A.J. Brown this offseason, and we've kind of seen Jalen Hurts take that next step as a quarterback. I had my questions about him heading to the season, especially after the playoff loss to the Buccaneers, where I believe the Eagles were shut out. They may have got a garbage time touchdown. Mm-hmm. But last night he was 26 of 31 for 333 yards and a passing touchdown and 2 rushing touchdowns. I think just the fact that, he's not your prototypical quarterback, where I don't think he throws with anticipation for the most part. I think receivers kind of have to show that they're open. But I do believe that he's a very efficient quarterback, and he takes care of the ball. He doesn't force anything down the field. And I think as long as he takes care of the football, they depend on that running game, and their defense continues to play like they did last night, especially shutting down Justin Jefferson. I believe Justin Jefferson only had 48 receiving yards, and Darius Slay had 5 pass breakups and 2 interceptions. I think the Eagles, they're clearly the best team in the NFC, especially when you look at all the other teams in the NFC and what their issues are.
Now, Slay was great last night. He was locking down Jefferson. He was a real menace. Are the Eagles the best in NFC? I'm not willing to say that yet, but I am pretty close. Just need to see a little more, because I still think the Packers have, if they can show that they can pass, the Packers, I think Packers with any type of solid passing offense is the best team. Tampa, if Tom Brady turns around, I don't know how that's going to look. Rams still have talent, but Eagles are definitely right there. And what's so impressive with them, I think I don't see a hole in their defense or their offense. I think they're just an overall well-constructed team. Even with their receiving weapons, you got A.J. Brown, just solidified 1. You have Devontae Smith, great number 2. That's a perfect player to have number 2. Quez Watkins is a pretty good number 3. Speedster. Zach Pascal, nice depth. And then Dallas Goedert. So that's just weapons all around for Jalen Hurts to use at his disposal. Then they got the 3-headed running backs. I do believe if they want to truly hit their offense potential, it probably has to be Miles Sanders who takes over, and he's the alpha in that running back room. But they look great. Jalen Hurts has definitely taken a step. I think he's shown that he's someone. He sort of has like that. I think he has that it factor, where it's just like, even if there's players better than him, quarterbacks better than him, he's not the smartest guy back there. Even though I think he's quite smart, but maybe the anticipation could be better. I just think he has the ability just to will a win or will a play, and he will do whatever it takes. And I really like Hurts back there, and I like the defense. You got Slay, you got overall assortment of pass rushers. I am excited for the Eagles, and I think they have the division on lock, and they can go for that 1 seed.
Now, when I say that they're the best team, I'm not saying that that will be the end result. But after 2 weeks, I think they're clearly the best team. I mean, you have the Rams. They lost week 1, and I know it was against the Bills. And then they only won by 4 against Atlanta. I don't know. The Rams, I don't know. I just think they're way too top-heavy, and their offensive line also gives me concerns. You have the Bucks, who have a bunch of injuries. Mike Evans will be suspended this week. And the whole Tom Brady situation, I think that's just a distraction off the field. And then Green Bay, I know you said like they could be a solid passing game, but are they willing to do that? Is Rodgers willing to trust receivers? After week 1, we saw Christian Watson basically get 2 shovel passes week 2. And I don't think Rodgers trusts him at all. Dubs got 2 screen passes that he took advantage of. You have Randall Cobb, okay, Sammy Watkins. When was the last time he was dependable? And then Alan Lazard, who had an ankle injury, and he seemed to maybe aggravate his ankle injury. When you look at the receiving targets, nobody had more than 4 targets from those receivers. So I don't know. Maybe they could be a good receiving room, but I don't think Rodgers is willing to trust anybody at the moment, at least.
Yeah, that'll be very big. It will depend on Rodgers throughout the year gaining more and more trust. I think he trusts probably Lazard, Watkins, and Cobb, but the rookies are big. But back to the Eagles. So do you think – I know that you said you don't know if they'll be at the end of the year. They've definitely been the most impressive. But would you say they're your pick to just have the best record in the NFC right now? Not win it, but just best record?
Well, so when we did our division prediction video, we did do our Super Bowl, like who we thought would represent each conference. And I did say it would be the Eagles or 49ers. So, but I think they could potentially end up with the best record. Especially with their easy schedule. I know their next 2 games are against the Commanders and the Jaguars. That's very doable to be 4-0. And then they still have to play the NFC East teams, each of them twice. So I think that's 6 free wins. And I think if they just continue to keep playing this way, I think their defense, I think is a very underrated group. And I know that they added a lot of talent to that side, but I don't think people realize exactly how good that defense is. And I just think the NFC as a whole is just so weak that I think the Eagles can definitely just take advantage of their deep roster and make a run.
The Lions did score 35 on them, I believe.
Well, yeah, but the Vikings did beat Green Bay. I know it was at Minnesota. It wasn't prime time, so Kirk Cousins, he wasn't going to be bad.
I think that's the Packers' typical, just they suck in week 1 syndrome. I think that's what they do.
Yeah, but the Viking or the Eagles, the one concern that I had coming into week 2 was their run defense, and they kind of answered all those questions about that. I don't think the Vikings necessarily gave Dalvin Cook the ball enough. I think he only had 6 carries, but holding him to 17 yards, and they just kind of stifled the Vikings offense as a whole last night. The Vikings could never really get into a rhythm in the passing game or running game, and with Kirk Cousins, you kind of have to find a rhythm for him to get going.
The NFC East is interesting because I think that each team has honestly impressed me more than I thought. With the Cowboys losing Dak, they beat the Bengals with Cooper Rush. Giants are 2-0, even though it's been like these hard-nosed. You like to see that. And Washington has shown they've had talent. It's not that I think any of those teams can take over the NFC East and beat the Eagles. I don't think that. I think the Eagles have this on lock. But I do think the NFC East now has like this weird sort of just like everyone is somewhat dependable. So I'm looking forward to this Eagles-Washington game. Of course, Carson Wentz back against the Eagles is always interesting with how he plays and if he stays level-headed or not. And that I'm very excited for that game. And I think it could show if the Eagles dominate, it could just show they're on a roll. And if Washington keeps it close, it could show that Washington's a team that you just don't want to play.
So with that, what is your second takeaway from week 2?
My second takeaway is that the AFC North is completely up for grabs between all 4 teams. Now, some people, you may listen to this and be like, Browns don't have a chance, they don't have Deshaun. Pittsburgh, what are they doing? But then you look at top 2 teams, the Bengals, 0-2. Offensive line is terrible. It's just terrible. They're getting destroyed. You have Micah Parsons running free, not even blocked. Micah Parsons, one of the best pass rushers in all of the NFL. That's just the Bengals. They look like a disaster right now. Could they pick it up? Yes, but will they? I don't know. I mean, they blew a game against the Steelers. They're messing up these easy opportunities. They should be 2-0. And then the Ravens, their defense. Tua may be good, and Hill and Waddle are dynamic as any duo has probably ever been speed-wise. But to allow Tua just in the second half, I think he scored like 28. That's just insane. And you got to hold some resistance there. They're just getting torched, wide open receivers. The Ravens' defense is real struggle. They need J.K. back because they don't feel like their run game is there yet with Kenyon Drake and Mike Davis and Justice Hill. It's definitely the run game needs improvement. So the Ravens had concerns. I think with the Browns, I think Jacoby Brissett's played well. It looks like their overall team isn't bad. They should have beat the Jets. If Nick Chubb doesn't run in for that touchdown, they win. I mean, we've seen Nick Chubb on our dynasty team when we had him. He'd stop at the one when he had to. For some reason, he ran this one in and cost them. And then Pittsburgh. I truly think Pittsburgh got a great defense. TJ Watt should come back at some point. Great weapons. The O-line is going to be a concern. But Mitch Trubisky's play obviously isn't up to the level to win this division. I believe that Kenny Pickett has the potential. If he were to go placed in with Pickens and Deontay Johnson and Claypool with Najee in the backfield and Freiermuth, I think Pittsburgh can also win that division. So I think that's completely up for grabs. It sort of may be injury-based, luck-based, decision-based on Pickett, Trubisky, and that's something to really look at.
Yeah, I kind of see this division. I know that the Bengals are struggling right now and they're 0-2, but I do kind of see this division as a two-horse race. I don't see Cleveland. I think Watson's out too long for them to really make an impact, and them losing to the Jets is just not a really good look. And then Steelers, TJ Watt, I think him being out multiple weeks, I think regardless of what they do at quarterback, I just don't see him winning this division. I do think Pickett is better than Trubisky, but I just don't see them moving off Trubisky for another few weeks. And until they move him off, I'm not very confident in the Steelers doing anything. And then Baltimore, your point about the defense, I think right now they're depending on a lot of rookies, especially in their secondary. I think they have 2 fourth-round corners playing, and then they have Kyle Hamilton at safety, who still learning the position at the NFL level. Mm-hmm. So I would give the Ravens defense a little bit of break, even though giving up 28 points to Miami in one quarter is not a great look, especially I believe it was 35-14. So they scored
3.
Yeah.
23 Patriots Falcons.
Yeah. So it's just kind of, I think I would give them a break. The thing I am most concerned about is that Bengals offensive line, though. Mm-hmm. They made all these acquisitions in the offseason, and through 2 games, Burrow has been sacked 13 times. So I think he's on pace for being sacked 106 times. So it's just that's probably the most worrisome stat in this division.
So I want to go back to I just want to sort of go through it based off what you said. With the Ravens, do you think they are going to pick it up? And maybe the defense of rookies do pick it up, but maybe it's like week 10 and they've lost a few games because of it.
I think because of their easy schedule, I think they could afford to take their lumps, especially on the defensive side. But I think Lamar will keep them afloat. I still think Bengals can find a way to win this division, but it's definitely worrisome that they lost their first 2 games against quarterbacks like Trubisky and Cooper Rush.
Froze. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, we're back. What were you saying about the Bengals?
I was just saying it's worrisome that their 2 losses come against the Pittsburgh Steelers and Cowboys when Trubisky and Cooper Rush were starting.
Mm-hmm. Now, that's a real concern. I like Lamar, but something's off with those Ravens. And then with the Steelers, if you take out quarterback and offensive line, I think they're the most talented team all around in that. If you take weapons and defense, they're the best team in that division, in my opinion. And so if you put in Pickett and he can just provide you some good play, some solid play, which I think he can, because I think he's a better thrower. think he's more accurate. And I don't know if he's more athletic, but I think he's smarter with his running choices that I've seen. So I think Pickett could go in there, really elevate Pickens, Deontay, Claypool. I don't think you could take them out, but it's all about if Tomlin will be willing to go to Pickett. And that's my biggest concern with them, just go to Pickett. And then with the Browns, I mean, they played really well. Brissett is a high-end backup, low-end starter. He's somewhere in there. They should be 2-0. That's just a fluky loss, in my opinion. And they do get Deshaun back later, so if Brissett could just keep the team afloat, I mean, they could really – if they're sitting around 500, Deshaun comes in, and if he's the Deshaun before all the offseason stuff and all the terrible news and scandal, that's a potential division winner if this division doesn't have someone rise up to the top of the ranks. So I really think it's all around – I don't think a single team's out of it. I think they all have pretty evenly chances of winning, and it'll just – I'm very interested.
Yeah, I don't think Brissett's necessarily played well. I think he played well this past week, but it's against the Jets.
He's doing his job. I think he's doing his job.
I don't see it.
When you have Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt back there, and Nick Chubb's playing fantastic, you don't have to do too much. They got a game again on Thursday against the Steelers I'm interested in. I'm also interested in the Ravens game against the Patriots. Patriots are 1-1. If this Miami offense is really very legit, as we think, the Patriots, I believe, one of the touchdowns they allowed in the 27 loss to Miami was a fumble from Mac Jones for a touchdown. So that means they allowed Miami's offense to score 13 points. The Patriots may have a legit defense, and they have been running the ball well with Harris and Stevenson behind him. Mac had a couple nice throws, but they still only scored 17. I don't think the Ravens have a shoe-in against the Patriots, so they got a big matchup with Steelers, Browns, Ravens, Patriots. Bengals should beat the Jets. Then I'll put them at 2-1. We assume they beat the Jets. Who knows anymore? And I think it'll be wide open. I think another week will be even more telling.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like Cleveland, I just don't know. And it's Pittsburgh, I'm just not that confident in as well.
We'll see. I'm excited. What is your takeaway, your second takeaway here?
My second takeaway is that the Denver Broncos have been the most disappointing team in the NFL. Mm-hmm. A lot of people, I think this is a Hackett and Russell Wilson issue, especially Hackett. And that doesn't mean that Russell Wilson has not been terrible. But I think when he takes so long to call a play, it doesn't give Russell Wilson his offense to get to the line and make their adjustments. So I think what's happening is that they're getting to the line and they're just going with the play that was called because they have to. And Hackett, it's just weird. He refuses to take timeouts. Like if there's about to be a delayed game, call timeout. I think sometimes this offense gets into a rhythm, and then you get a delayed game, and instead of being second 6, second 7, it's now second 11, second 12. So I think it's more on coaching than Russell Wilson, but Russell Wilson has been very bad.
I think Hackett, I agree. Hackett's a big issue in my opinion. It just seems like he makes mistakes that a head coach doesn't make. It seems like he's someone who's not prepared. It's someone like the Bill O'Brien type of things, the Matt Rule type of things, those type of coaches where it's just you're watching them and you're not sure if they're competent enough to be a head coach. He obviously has had some success offensive coordinator, but when I watched his decision making, their play calling, especially when fourth and 2, and then they don't know what to do, and then it's 4th and 7, and then he decides not to kick a field goal, which was also weird. McManus can kick that field goal in Denver. Another weird decision, just decides to punt. Another one that stuck out with me, I don't know if it was 3rd or 4th down, but it was 1 yard to gain for the first. Javonte in the backfield.
I believe it was 3rd. I believe that was a play before the field goal, the delayed game on the field goal.
It may have been, but
it was a handoff to the tight end.
Yes, that's just what are you doing there? And then Russell Wilson, I don't see him connecting or bringing anything extra to this offense. What makes Russell Wilson, what has made him great, has been the gorgeous deep ball he has, and then his ability to be mobile and throw on the run. And you just don't see any of that. I'm not sure if he's less athletic or less willing to. I'm not going to say that. I'm not sure. I'd have to really look at it play by play, which I haven't done. But I just don't see this greatness that he has shown before. It looks like he's just an ordinary quarterback who's a little fast, and he missed that Javonte 1-yard touchdown. I mean, maybe you couldn't see. It looks like a disaster to me. The weapons, I think they're good, but they're nothing spectacular, and the defense is fine. We'll get to see. Do you know who they play? I'm forgetting at the
They
moment.
play San Francisco Sunday night.
Yes, I think San Francisco should take that game. I mean, I'm not sure, but that'll be a very telling game. And they just have a lot of uncertainty. I don't see the boom potential with them. I just see them. It seems like if they work it out, they'll just be a solid team. So they are very disappointing.
Now, I'm not saying this is the main issue, but do you think that, and a lot of teams I think are seeing this issue, but the lack of preseason snaps and gaining that chemistry during the preseason, do you think that's an issue that's correlated?
I think that could be something sometimes, but I don't see it particularly. I don't see it specifically with this team because I just see it's like Wilson's just standing there waiting for the plays to happen. It's not like it's crossers and he's like not connecting because they're a little off on timing. It just seems like nothing's happening, and I don't think that's preseason play. I mean, that could have something to do with it. I just think it's an overall issue of bad gameplay, Russell Wilson not making the plays he usually does, and just not the best execution.
Yeah, I think, and I also didn't mention this, but like the red zone offense has been awful. I saw a stat the other day that Russell Wilson has 18 pass attempts in the red zone, and he's only completed 8 of them.
18?
He's had 18 red zone attempts, and he's completed 8 of them. And no touchdowns, and I believe that's like 51%, or not 51%. That's less than 50%, like 48%, 49%.
He didn't complete 50% of his passes against Houston.
Yeah, there was one point he was 3 of 11 during that game for like 30 yards.
I mean, Houston, we don't think they're that good of a team, and they were really struggling to the wire. It's just they look a mess. It does put confidence for our Chiefs, though. We should be good. We're looking good, but just Denver's been terrible. They gave Wilson the extension right before the year. That may end up biting them.
What I would like to see them, because I do think some of this stems from the fact that Hackett just takes a long time to get plays in and there's just no rhythm. I would kind of like to see them on Sunday night just go into a hurry-up offense. Mm-hmm. Let Russell kind of control the line of scrimmage for a few plays. If that doesn't work, you go back to calling plays with Hackett. But I think for a little bit of stretch of that game, I would like to see them go into hurry-up just to try to find a bit of rhythm in that game.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea. And I also think, it's not being biased for fantasy teams, that Hackett needs to just go into Javonte's my best running back. Melvin Gordon's good, but Javonte's the best running back, and you need to get the offense clicking, and you're switching them in and out. And I think against San Francisco, who has a good run defense, you need to come in. You need to give the ball to Javonte. You saw Javonte, I believe it was a play where it was against Seattle, right before they kicked the 64-yarder, but it was like 3rd and 16, and he got 9 yards just making plays. I think they have to commit to Javonte being their stud, with Melvin coming in every once in a while, but I think there has to be more Javonte than Melvin and less this 50-50 split that we're seeing.
Yeah, I think if once they get inside the 5, first and second down, I'm running to Javonte. Mm-hmm. I don't care what the defensive look is. I'm running on first and second down with Javonte. And he averaged 5 yards a rush last week. He had 15 carries for 75 yards. Mm-hmm. I want to see him get 18 to 20 carries a week, and then you can sprinkle in Melvin Gordon for about 8 to 10. But I would not mind if they ran the ball 30 times, and I think you can still throw the ball 25 to 30 times with Russell if you really want him to cook, as they say. Mm-hmm. But as far as it goes for Sunday, I think if Judy's out, I probably give the edge to San Francisco. But I think if Judy's in, I don't trust San Francisco's secondary to really cope with both those weapons and the rushing attack.
No, it'll be a big game for sure. I'm excited for it. I think that'll be an interesting Sunday night. I'm more confident now that Jimmy G's playing than Trey Lance, but that's a whole nother discussion.
We've had arguments about that. So
it is sad to see Trey. You never want to see injury like that. San Francisco definitely wanted to see him, even if he's not better than Jimmy G right now. You wanted to see that potential. Now they're gonna have to wait another year, which is very unfortunate.
Yeah, the good news for Lance is that it wasn't like the Dak Prescott injury. It wasn't a compound fracture, so it may be a shorter timeline, and maybe he gets up to speed quicker than Dak has.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Are there any honorable mentions that you have for any reactions you have from week 2?
Let me see here real quick. I definitely think the Dolphins, their offense showed potential that it's like, okay, this should be an issue. Big game against the Bills. What else do we have here? Trevor Lawrence, I think there's potential by week 5 or 6. We're talking about him not in the top tier, but maybe in that tier with Kirk
Like
Cousins.
top 15?
Yes, Kirk Cousins,
15, top 15.
Carr. I think Trevor Lawrence could really make a leap. Christian Kirk, I mean, I made fun of that signing. He's fantastic. I mean, sometimes when those ridiculous contracts come out and you're like, oh, well, there's no reason for that. The team has a reason and just maybe we're not thinking about it. What else would I say here? I think the Falcons are just a real burden for every team to face. And anything else that I
Are you
see?
concerned that Kyle Pitts could be a potential bust? I mean, I don't think they utilize him enough, but I mean, he has back-to-back games with 19 yards.
I just think it's the offense working itself out. I don't think he's a bust. He's not going to be a bust. But I think that he's potentially going to underwhelm from his draft price. Yes, I think that's definitely in factor. But I think for them, that's not their main concern right now. I think their main concern is just continuing to get better with their young pieces. London looks great. And their team, they'll probably be a top 5 pick, but they seem like a pain. Mariota's a unique quarterback. Pitts and London are unique weapons. Cordell Patterson's a unique weapon. Got A.J. Terrell and Casey Hayward. That could be a solid cornerback duo. They're just they have these weird pieces that just make games a little more difficult for teams. Do you have anything else that is sticking out to you?
I have a couple. So one, in our division video, I did say the Raiders would finish last.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't expect them to start out 0-2. I did expect them to lose the Chargers, but after watching Arizona week 1, I just think it's very disappointing that they end up losing that game, especially being up 20-0. And Devontae Adams only had 2 catches, one of them being a 1-yard touchdown. So I think they're in really bad trouble, especially if they lose this week against Tennessee. One of those teams will be 0-3 after this week. So I don't know. The Raiders, I feel like I thought they were going to go 7-10, 8-9. Going to the year, I feel like it could be like 6-11 now. I think they got way too much hype. And I don't know why they got so much hype going into the season. I know they added Devontae Adams and all that, but the offensive line's not that good. And I think the defense is just so reliant on Chandler Jones and Max Crosby.
That seems a little harsh, 6 wins. I think they're just working out the kinks. They definitely blew that game. I think they're going to work out the kinks. I think they'll be fine. They'll be what I expect them to be moving forward, I believe. I'm not sure about them falling apart. 2 other things I also just remembered. Brian Dable, love him as a head coach. I think he's pretty good. I did see a report today that they are looking at receivers, and he's been talking to them, and they are he's trying to play his guys. So Kenny G will probably not do much. Neither will probably Tony, unless Tony's potential finally fully flashes, but I wouldn't expect much from them. And then I think Derrick Henry, I know it's been 2 games. He ran fine against the Giants, and he stuffed, obviously, against the Bills, who are probably the best team in the league. I mean, that could have been my takeaway, but I thought that after week 1. But Derrick Henry, it doesn't look like he has the burst he used to, and that's something that I think we will see more against the Raiders because they have a suspect run defense. So I think that'll be something. I'm not going to say it fully yet, but if he struggles against the Raiders and they can't run, I think that Henry may be his years of being this dominant physical force may be behind him.
Yeah, and the other takeaway I wanted to talk about really quick was how you said AFC North is up for the taking. I think that's the case with AFC South.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at all these teams, Jacksonville right now is in first place at 1-1. So, and I expect Colts to lose this week, so they'll be 0-2-1. I still expect Colts to win this division, but it's definitely just not a good sign that they've tied Houston and lost to Jacksonville. I just think that's just not a good look.
No, it's not good. If Derrick Henry is what I think he is, as I was just saying earlier, I don't think Titans have a chance. I've watched Houston. I don't think they have a chance. I think it really comes down to should Trevor Lawrence be great. if he could be great, I think they'll take this division. But I don't think he'll fully reach that yet. I mean, it's very likely that the records are 0-3, 0-3 Titans, or no, 0-3 Titans, 0-2-1 Colts and Texans, and a 1-2 Jaguars, and then the Colts are just right behind the Jaguars. I see the Colts still winning because they have the most experienced roster and probably the most high-end talent on their roster, but it's definitely something that is up for question. And if the Colts continue to play this poorly, I think Trevor Lawrence may come up as a division winner in his second year.
Do you have any other takeaways before we close out?
I wouldn't call it takeaway, but I'm excited. I'm wondering to see how the Patriots look against the Ravens. I think that'll be telling on the Patriots and their potential wild card.
So that will do it for us today. Thursday, we may be putting out a video giving our predictions for week 3.
Hopefully.
Until then, make sure to like our video and subscribe.